When did I write my first song? Well, I guess it was soon after I got a guitar and a tape recorder, which was back in the early 1980s. My first guitar was a really cheap acoustic guitar that I got from Sam Goody's, and then I got a really cheap little cassette player, and from then I just started trying to write things, try to copy songs that I thought were like cool at the time, and that helped me like learn how to play the instrument and music in general.
I'll go along with that. I started, not a tune that I would present to anyone, but maybe about the time I started teaching at Rowan, I wrote a tune that actually was performed, and it was a big thrill. So that's going back a few years, 97 or 2000, something like that. So not that long comparatively.
Yeah, but I had a slow start, I'm sure. I think that the type of music I was listening to at the time wasn't really necessarily jazz, because at that time when I started like really getting interested in playing music, what I thought was jazz was sort of like George Benson, and not the early George Benson, but sort of the late George Benson, and that sort of like instrumental popish kind of thing. And so I think the things that really influenced me at the time, that time I was like really listening to a lot of WXPN. Really kind of like avant-garde stuff that wasn't necessarily jazz-ish kind of stuff, and stuff that I'd heard from the 70s, like some funk and some rock stuff. I was like really into Pink Floyd, like late in the 70s. So that kind of progressive rock kind of stuff. And then I sort of meandered into jazz slowly during the 1980s and started to really change my shift from like writing lyric-based songs into like learning how to like delve into the harmonic and rhythmic concepts of jazz. And that's when I started to like really embrace learning the guitar as a jazz instrument instead of just like an accompaniment instrument.
Okay. And composer-wise, or just music-wise, again, very similar story. I thought Yes and Genesis and King Crimson was the hippest stuff in the world until I heard Mahavishnu Orchestra, and that completely changed my life. And then through that, you get into, the fact that John McLaughlin had played with Miles Davis, and Miles Davis played with Bird, and they all play, and Coltrane, and then, not that I'm any kind of serious composer, but the ones I admire the most are like Ellington, Mingus, Wayne Shorter. My tune from the Philadelphia Real Book is called Serendib, and it's in 7/4, and it's basically a maiden voyage with a beat dropped, and that's the vamp that goes on, and the chords are kind of ripping off some stuff from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So it's a amalgam of stuff. If you want to check out the tune, I be glad you did.
My tune that we're doing this evening from the first real book is called Caribou Games. It was written during like I had like a year-long sort of weekly gig with a saxophonist in the Philadelphia area, Elliot Levin. And we would go in every week and sort of play and try to like be inventive and like not just play strictly real books things until one day the owner came up and said, look, I can't have you guys back because I'm getting like flack from BMI. They wanted to charge me for you guys playing real book tunes, and so we talked to him and said, look, we'll just, we won't play anything that that's recognizable. And so that sort of like became like an impetus for me to like come up with like some like jazz sounding tunes every week, but with like maybe using somebody's chords and then writing like another melody over it. So this is one of the tunes that actually came out of that sort of like long kind of residency that we had. And it's called Caribou Games because the place we were playing was Caribou Cafe.
Oh.
And it was just a catchy title for a tune, for one of the many tunes that came out of those sessions.
Okay.
Serendib is in 7 because that's the name of the 7th voyage of Sinbad or something. One of the ones where nothing really horrible happened to him. You know, there was no Cyclops or anything. It was almost like they gave him it as a reward for all the stuff that he had done before. So that's why the title hooks up with the time signature of the tune. Just that it's in 7 and it's got a little cyclical thing happening.
I think people might find my tune interesting because it's not a strict formulaic form, you know, with 8 bars and, you know, then a bridge and then 8 bars, and it's in 3. I kind of like the melody, so that's why I chose that one to stick in the book. And the changes I found interesting because they sort of like meander between like 2 relative chords, C major and E flat major, with the C major turning into a C minor. And so it's sort of open, but you can sort of follow the changes if you intend to.
When I heard David here in this very room with Elliot Levin, I heard something in his playing that I thought would work out with what my overall idea is about how a band could sound. And EJ, Ed Yellen, we've known each other forever. We were in a band together called Reverie, and
a very good band called Reverie, if my memory serves.
Anyway, and Chris Simonini was a student at Rowan, and my business of music course, which was a chance to do 90 minutes of stand-up twice a week. Chris would get up like 10 minutes before the class was over and run out, and I don't know how many weeks went by before I said, hey man, is it something about me? You know, and he said, no, I got to get my theory class, because a lot of people were taking my class because they heard it was easy. And Chris was taking it because he was a serious musician, unbeknownst to me at the time. So, and again, he's got big ears, and it's a nice little combination.
Not only the community was very nurturing to me as a growing musician, because but also like the Philadelphia Free Library was like my institution. I didn't go to music school. I didn't grow up here in Philadelphia, going, as a musician, going to Kappa or, getting to know other musicians in the area through All City Band or anything like that. I sort of came in as a college student, really, from North Carolina after like moving down to North Carolina as a youngster from here. And so, when I got a chance to actually work with like some Philadelphia musicians, I think one of the first groups of musicians I worked with was Khan Jamal and the Jazz Composers Forum. Mm-hmm. And so they were sort of my, my real like, kick into the pool as far as like jazz and jazz playing and jazz and just the whole concept of the harmonic concept and the disillusion of the concept into like something freer and more avant-garde. So, like I said, the Philadelphia Free Library, great resource, one of the best resources I could recommend, and like the musicians such as Khan Jamal and the members of the Summer Orchestra, who I've been sort of like been mentored with or underneath for the past 18 years.
Philadelphia to me was like some kind of jazz mecca because I moved here from Indianapolis. So I remember checking into a motel where we were playing, and this really dates the story, but there were the radios on the wall, and whoever had been in the room before me left it on WRTI, so I turn it on, and it says, that's right, we're in John Coltrane weekend, 72 straight hours of Coltrane. And I just said, I'm moving here. So that's how it nurtured me.